The system which the United States represents was new in its time. We were a unique republic. Nothing like it actually existed in Europe. It did not exist in the 18th century, did not exist in the 19th century, and did not really exist in the 20th century. We are a unique form of government. European systems, and systems of the world in general, are oligarchical systems. That is, you have an upper ruling class or influential class which dominates society, typified by parliamentary systems. A parliamentary system is a system of tyranny. It's based on, you have a parliament, elected officials, who solely make certain decisions. But the minute they try to make a decision that offends the leading powers, the parliament goes into a crisis, and you have a new parliamentary government, the end of the threat. That's the way it works. In our system, our constitutional system, inherently is superior to any other system on this planet when we use it, when our Constitution is followed. Because our Constitution is based on certain principles which flow implicitly from the intention of the preamble of the federal Constitution. And also that our system of government constitutionally is not a monetary system. It's a credit system. Read the Constitution. How is the Constitution? A bill is presented in the House of Representatives. That bill authorizes the Department of Treasury, and therefore the President, money created under law under our Constitution. A bill is presented in the House of Representatives. That bill authorizes the Department of Treasury, and therefore the President, to utter credit of the United States in the form of currency or some other form of credit. Public credit. This credit is then released and applied according to law at the discretion of government. This credit forms the basis for our currency, the utterance of our currency. It forms the basis for public credit, such as investments in public infrastructure, building a railway system, building power systems, dams, and so forth, funding certain kinds of, launching of certain kinds of private projects, as well as for warfare. Public credit is our system. We regulate our currency, as we did best under Franklin Roosevelt, to have a fixed exchange rate system among nations. That works the best. We are unique in that sense. Every part of Europe, for example, is still, well, forget Eastern Europe, forget Russia for the moment, but every part of Central and Western Europe is actually an oligarchical system in which there is a higher power than government. That higher power is central banking. Central banking is private central banking. And private credit in the form of a monetary system controls the governments. We're living in essentially a British empire. That is, the world is run by a money system called a free market system, or the equivalent. The money system is controlled by banks and similar financial institutions. Governments under free trade are not supposed to interfere with the functioning of that system. You're under a dictatorship of international finance. The only alternative to this, which is what is hated by the oligarchs, is Franklin Roosevelt's system. Franklin Roosevelt instituted a revival of the American system based on public credit rather than monetary power, arbitrary monetary power. Now, the present system, to make as short of this as possible in terms of this aspect of the presentation, the present system, as long as we try to operate according to the rules of an international monetary system, the United States is now hopelessly doomed. And Howard can scream all he wants, it's still doomed. He will just make it worse. There is no hope for the continued survival of the United States under the present monetary system. However, under our Constitution, with a president and with the backing of a Congress which supports him in this, the United States can turn on a dime. Precisely such is the key to my proposed legislation, which is now before the Congress. That is, you cannot reform this system. You cannot improve it. It cannot work. There's no way of escaping catastrophe globally under this system. None. What you can do, and you can do under our Constitution, the federal government can act to create a firewall in which we protect, for example, mortgages and banks, that is, legitimate banks, chartered banks. We move to protect them absolutely under the same thing as a bankruptcy procedure. In other words, you're putting the system into bankruptcy under the authority of the federal government. That means that no household will have an eviction. We'll sort it out later. No bank will be closed, shut down. No regular bank, no chartered bank will be shut down. They're protected under bankruptcy protection. We now proceed to decide what is going to be paid in the future. We're not going to pay gambling debts. And most of this monetary effluent that you're seeing floating out there is gambling debts. What is called monetary assets. All is speculation, 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 speculator. Gambling debts. We don't pay gambling debts. What about my bank, my debt? I got this note. I got this note. Who's going to pay my note? Nobody's going to pay your note, buddy. It's a gambling debt. Can't collect. It's an IOU, not worth anything. As George Bush said wrongly about Social Security claims. That's not an IOU. That's an obligation of the federal government. It's not an IOU. Gambling debts are IOU. Goldman Sachs is a bunch of IOUs. And I don't think they're going to pay that either. So the point is, what you can do under the authority of government, you can create a new system. In our case, in our republic, the system you would create would be a return to the principles of the Constitution as typified in example by the precedent of what Franklin Roosevelt did with Harry Hopkins and others to save the United States from the worst depression we'd had up to that time. That is in the 20th century. We do the same thing again. So what is required here, leadership means, very simply, things that the average guy out there can understand. The average person on the state level, the state legislatures, in similar institutions, are sane. The people in the Congress are insane from the top down. That doesn't mean they're all insane. It means they're intimidated by Harry Reid, they're intimidated by Pelosi, and so forth and so on. Therefore, they will sabotage anything which is not pleasing to the bankers, to the financiers. And now it's to the international financiers, centered on the City of London. The center of the world economy today is the City of London. It's not the British monarchy as such. The British monarchy is an institution of the system. But the British monarchy is not the controller of the system. The controller of the system is a Venetian-style system of private financier interests, sort of like a slime mold, which assembles and asserts its collective power and uses the instruments of government under its compulsion to cause societies to submit to its will. That's an empire. That was the empire, the medieval empire of the Crusaders and the Venetians, the usurers. That's been the British Empire since February of 1763, when we broke from the British on that issue. All we have to do is reestablish the principle of sovereign government. The sovereign government is the highest authority on this planet, and especially in our own country. We say we put the system into bankruptcy reorganization. Our objective is to make sure that we can keep the economy, the society going without missing a step. No one is evicted from their homes. no bank, which is a chartered bank, is closed down.